Fox and Friends launches new 14th Amendment conspiracy theory. You'll never guess who they believe is behind the so-called liberal plot to keep Trump off the ballot in Colorado and Maine. Too bad for them, those original plaintiffs were Republicans. You'll never guess who they believe is behind the so-called liberal plot to keep Trump off the ballot in Colorado and Maine. Too bad for them, those original plaintiffs were Republicans. Here are the hosts of this Sunday's Fox and Friends weekend, doing their best to spin David Axelrod's recent comments about the 14th Amendment cases into some grand scheme by Barack Obama. Co-hosts Joey Jones, Rachel-Campos, Duffy and Pete Hegseth started off the segment by playing some of Axelrod's remarks from this weekend. Former Obama advisor David Axelrod warned Friday that a court decision removing former President Trump from the primary ballot would rip the country apart, as legal questions mount over his candidate qualifications. "I have very, very strong reservations about all of this," Axelrod said in an Aaron Burnett Outfront interview on CNN. "I do think it would rip the country apart if he were actually prevented from running because tens of millions of people want to vote for him. I think if you're going to beat Donald Trump, you're going to probably have to do it at the polls," he continued. Axelrod said the Maine decision plays into Trump's claims that Democrats are politically motivated to move against him and could rile voters. "A lot of the motivation for Trump's candidacy was as a legal defense strategy," Axelrod said. "He wanted to set up a construct which says that they're coming after him because he's running for president and they're trying to prevent him from being president. We've run this experiment. He's only gained since he started getting indicted," he continued. "What you thought might be kryptonite for him has turned out to be battery packs, and this is a big one for him." Here's the ridiculous spin in response from the Fox propagandists. Campos Duffy. "Yeah, in that, I was trying to find the quote inside what he said. He said, 'The plan is not working, you're going to have to beat him at the polls,' which to me shows this was a plan, and by the way, they're trying to play it both ways." Axelrod, David Axelrod is a mouthpiece for Barack Obama, and this, get Trump off the ballot, basically launched nuclear lawfare against him. That is entirely a concocted plan by the Democrat Party, of which Obama and Axelrod are leaders. So, yeah, he is kind of talking about how it's a bummer it's not working. Hegseth. It's a good point. This is a nice fallback plan. It's like, well, it didn't work, so. Campos Duffy. I guess we're going to have to beat him at the ballot box or the country is going to get ripped apart. They don't believe any of it. They don't care if they rip the country apart. If they cared about ripping the country apart, they wouldn't have launched, which Obama did, Russiagate and everything else they've done to him. Yeah, poor picked on Trump did nothing to deserve any of this. More lies that Russiagate wasn't real, and lawsuits launched by Republicans and advocacy groups are really just some evil plot by Obama and Axelrod. This was followed by more conspiracy theories, lies and fearmongering that health measures during COVID were just a liberal plot to steal elections. Georgia's voter suppression laws aren't real because enough voters came out to overcome them, and the evil libs just want to keep these state GOP parties busy defending Trump so they can't make time for their GOTV efforts. This is all the Democrats' fault, not Trump, don't ya know? That, and spreading more lies about when ballots are counted in various states, because they love to pretend early ballots that many states don't count until after the polls close are somehow illegitimate, so they can pretend the election was rigged when Trump goes down in flames. Hegseth. Well, they already ripped apart the ballot box too, through what happened under COVID and all the ways in which they changed how we vote. They're counting on that too. Jones. In some states like Georgia responded to that, passing a law just to make the election as fair in rural areas as it is the metropolitan areas. And of course that ended up being Jim Crow 2.0, despite the fact a record number of people registered and voted in the election since then, that was Jim Crow 2.0, simply by making sure that the Georgia elections were fair, equal and accessible. So, does this plan work? It may not work in keeping him off the ballot, but it's absolutely working and spreading resources. Then, when you GOP parties in Colorado having to spend all their time and attention just to get Trump on the ballot, they're not getting voters registered, they're not informing, they're not doing what they need to do to get people to the polls to vote. And so, maybe it's working in ways even more nefarious than we see. Hegseth. Yeah, on election night, we're going to have states like Florida, states like Georgia, that we're going to get returns. Jones. Hopefully no water pipes bust. Campos Duffy. At 3 a.m. Jones. Yeah, Hegseth. That's true. We're not even through the primary yet and they're already feeding his cult lies and seeding the ground for Trump with excuses for a loss in the general.